As we mentioned earlier, this week there are people making the case that 4 Houston police officers should not get their jobs back after it was ruled there just wasn't enough evidence to say that their shooting of Nicholas Chavez was unjustified. But as the family and others push back on this decision, we asked former police officer and current attorney Charles Adams to explain how this law enables those officers to get back on the force.
What's going on, man?
Officers have something called, for a lot of departments, they have something called civil service protection. A whole array of government employees have that, and that is to prevent people from suffering political consequence for engaging in their ministerial duties, right? So if every police officer could be fired every time you had a new mayor or a new city council, that would make officers reticent or hesitant to enforce the law if it might upset an elected official. And it creates a protocol, a defined policy on when and how you can fire someone. And then when someone gets fired, they can challenge it, and it goes through an arbitration process.
It was ruled that the city did not prove by preponderance of evidence in the letters of indefinite suspension.
Is the arbitrator's decision final?
Yes, it is the end of the road.
There's no, per se, double jeopardy here.
Well, you're right. And for this termination, now that doesn't mean they permanently get their jobs. It doesn't mean there can't be a career consequence of reassigning them or doing other things. If Chief Finner thinks that he has to take steps to protect the public from these officers.
How difficult is it for an officer to go back out and do their job when they've been so publicly identified as someone involved in something like this?
Well, when you say publicly, still the mass public, the general public's not going to be able to define or know who you are versus some other officer responding. I think there'll be a lot of bitterness for those officers who really felt like they didn't do anything wrong and lost their job as a result, and they were thrust into this situation. And also the guilt of killing someone, even if it was justified in their mind. I think it's going to be difficult for the officers, and it'll be difficult for the new chief, who was not the chief at the time, to decide where to place those officers, if he's going to assign them back to patrol or reassign them. I think it's just a really tragic situation all the way around.
Is there any repercussion for the person who initially fired them for whatever reason was deemed not acceptable or valid?
I mean, you could make some sort of weird tort claim like defamation or something outside of this process. But no, there's not going to be a personal judgment against the chief or any administrator, right? The consequence for us taxpayers will be all of the back pay that all of these officers are entitled to when they didn't work for those 16 months. It's a bad situation. It's an unfortunate situation. And what we should take away from that is we need more frontline mental health care and de-escalation practices for law enforcement.
Houston's new police chief says that the officers will receive reintegration training and that the department has made changes to their training process to better prepare for these scenarios.